morning everybody, bon dia a todos, welcome back aboard Motor Yacht Andreza. We're not going out today, we're going to do one of the techie type videos where we explain some of the bits and pieces on the yacht. So we're looking today at all the bits and pieces in the machinery spaces, in the engine rooms, etc. Once you get a boat above a certain length, probably about, once you start to hit plus 25 feet and upwards, boats stop being just about being a boat and going places and having a means of propulsion to get them there, and they become more like somewhere you stay upon or become a floating home if you wish. So you can stay on them for extended periods, you can stay on them indefinitely. People live on the boats, plenty of people live on the boats here in the marina. So as a consequence, they have to have everything on board that you would have in a normal home. So you have to have plumbing, you have to have electricity and lighting, etc. But because it's a boat and it's going to be going different places, you can't just hook it up to the main services. You can't hook it up to the sewage, you can't hook it up to the electricity generation unless you're in a marina. So if you're at anchor, you've either got to take those facilities with you, so take your sewage with you, take your electricity generation with you, either in the form of batteries or in generators, and all of those systems have to be integrated into the boat systems. And so what we're going to do today, we're going to go open up the machine spaces, we're going to do an engine room tour, and we're going to do a tour of the machine spaces in the stern areas of the boat below the lazarette, and I'll show you all the bits and pieces there and how they hook up. I'm going to get covered in bruises because it's full of bits of metal down there, and I'm going to have to crawl around, and I'll put a couple of lights in there because there is lights in there, but it's a bit dim. It might be easier for the cameras if I light that up for you. So I hope you enjoy this video, guys. I'll talk you through. If I miss anything out that I haven't pointed out and you spot it, leave me a comment in the comments and I'll try and answer that for you. Thanks a lot, guys. Okay, so the spaces we're going into today are the engine room here, which we'll come back to in a moment. But first, we're going to go into the lazarette, which is in the companionway. You can see. We're going to go down there. I'm going to climb down and I'll turn the camera back on because it's not an easy access to get in there, but and I don't want to drop the camera, so I'll turn it off and turn it back on once we're in there and show you around the machine spaces that are based in the lazarette and all the stern gear and everything else that goes in the yacht there that services the systems on the yacht, the domestic systems, etc., and some of the main steerage systems, etc. Okay, so we are in the lazarette now, and as we come in here, I'll leave my glasses there, you'll see there is the engine room, which we'll come back to in a moment. It goes right through from where we are. I'll give you a proper tour around the engines in a moment. But as you come into this part of the boat, this is where most of the domestic systems are. First thing you'll see here to port is the hot water tank. So that's the heating system for the hot water. It is dual, so it has a heating element in there, an electrical heating element, but it also has a water coil that comes from the exhaust. So as you're running the engines, the heat exchanger inside is taking heat from the exhaust water and using it to heat the domestic water. And that's that. Okay, from there we have all sorts of little gadgets in here. I'll show you around them later. But as we turn around and step down, the next thing we come to here is the air conditioning unit. So this unit here, got some extra light with me, powers all the centralised air conditioning. There's a heat exchangers at the back. The main pumps are on the far side, and the control box is just there. You can see the stern gear at the back there, so that's all the steering. It's also hooked up electronically through to the autopilot, and then just astern of the air conditioning is the hydraulic pumps for the passerelle by Bezzanzoni. You can see the passerelle itself is above us. This white box that you can see here, that is the housing for the passerelle. All the control units, etc. for the winches are over there, as you can see. That's the low France winches are on the back of the boat. And then you have the stern gear there, and then just behind the stern gear you can see that grey cylinder. That grey cylinder is the stern thruster. I'll sort of try and get over to it. That goes out through the boat, drives the propellers in the stern thruster. Over to the far starboard side, that big drum that you can see, that's the cable housing for the Glendinning cable reel. So as you press the button and it pays in or out the cable, it coils into that drum, so you don't have to store cables everywhere for your shore power. Over there to the far side you've got a set of batteries. There are 2 batteries in those red housings. They power the stern thruster and recharge from the main battery charging unit. And there is another battery just behind that. Just bear with me a second. I'll move over. And that's there. You can see that battery. That battery powers the generator, and that recharges from the generator itself when the generator is running. Here, just behind me, you have the generator itself inside that housing. It's a Fisher Panda 10 kilowatt generator, and there is the raw water strainer for the generator. So that's for its cooling systems. Just to the side of that, you can see there that red switch. That's the main battery switch, the main power off switch. If you ever need to isolate all the systems from anything, that's the switch that you turn everything off at. There are other little gizmos in here, like, as I said, you've got the electrical point there, should you need it. You've got a wash point there, should you want to hook up a hose. And then over to the far side there is a little pump with a hose attached that you can use to suck out any water that can't be caught by the main bilge pump should you ever get any water in this space. It's very hot in here, I'm afraid. So that's the main water pump for the generator. Keeps the water flowing through the water strainer and into the cooling system of the generator. And that's about what's in here. We also store things in here, like we've got a spare fender there. We've got the 2 Sea-Doos zipped up in the bags there. It's quite a lot of storage space. There is a big space here. And what you're looking at here, just above me, I should put that there, that's the garage. That's the floor of the garage where the tender is in. And there's the drains for it. But in that garage, there is a panel. Once you've taken the tender out, you can lift the floor of the garage out and access everything in here with the garage open. It becomes quite a light space. Very simple then to deal with the stern gear, etc. when you've got that out. Not so clever at the minute because it is probably no more than about 75 centimetres high in here. And it's not very easy to move around in, I'm afraid. So you'll see there is the automatic fire suppression system that sits over the air conditioning units. And this covers the whole of this space in here. As we go back, we'll come out of here and into the engine space. And I'll show you the engine rooms, and they have their own fire suppression systems in there. You can just see one of them there. There are more, as I'll demonstrate when we climb in there in a moment. Okay, so we're standing in the engine room, and I've removed the access ladder so you can get a better look around. And these are the engines then. I'll bring some lights in so you can see I've got a light stood on top there as well. Let me turn those on and you get a better look. So there is the front wall of the engine room, and you'll see she's got 2 automatic fire extinguishers in there set to go off when the others go. There is the main filter, fuel filter for each engine. Now, diesel filter, one on that side, one on that side. There's your starboard engine, your port engine, as well as those 2 fire suppression systems You also have them, let's move this back, sorry about that if that's blinding you. You also have a separate fire extinguisher over each engine, as you'll see there. Again, and that's the front of the garage that you can see just above us. And here then are the two main engines. Volvo D12 800 engines. Each one is 800 horsepower. And in here, this black box that you can see with the auxiliary stop on top of it. That's an emergency stop should you be in here and you need to shut the engine down. Underneath that box, there are three relays, three 24-volt relays that control the starting of the engine and the stopping of the engine. And if the D800 has a vulnerable spot, that is it. Definitely, that is it. You ever get an engine alarm and something, when you're trying to start an engine and it won't start, one of those relays will have gone. We always carry spares with us. It's happened a couple of times in the last 6 years, but everybody I ever speak to tells me that this is the only real weak spot that these engines have. They're fairly bulletproof other than that. If I take a step down in here, you can see now that all the additional filters are along here. Further oil and fuel filters, and the two dipsticks are here, and the filling port for the engine oil is here as well. So as part of our checks before we go, we would get here in the morning before everybody else gets here, and we'll pull these two dipsticks out and then check the oil on each engine, make sure that's okay. We'll also then check the raw water strainers, which are at the back. I'll show you those in a second. There's the alternator on the engines. Starter motor's on the far side. And it's not an easy engine room to move around in. The two big silver things you can see, one to port, one to starboard, are the fuel tanks. See the fuel lines coming off them there. And then just at the back, on the back wall there, is the battery control box. In that you can set the batteries from it has 4 batteries here, 2 that run the engines, 2 that run the domestic systems. So they're all the same. They are 150 amp deep cycle batteries that are wired so that they produce 24 volts. They are under this panel on the floor. There's the lights on now. You know, with me a second. I will attempt to show you that by lifting it up. So there, the front heavy duty batteries there, those are the motor batteries, and the 2 at the back, the black ones, are the deep cycle batteries for the domestic system. So they run all the pumps and everything else from the systems that pump the water around the boat, etc., the domestic water, and all the other bits and pieces, and the lights and everything else all run from these batteries, and they're charged from the main battery charging system. I'll have that back. Oh yeah. This track that you can see here contains the winch cable for. Contains the winch cable for the tender, and there's your tender winch motor and gearbox there. So that's the strap that runs out through the back of the boat that launches and recovers the tender. This might be a little bit difficult getting through here, but you'll just have to bear with me because it's a tight squeeze. So there is your battery control box. And there at the back, if you can see that, just bear with me a second, it's not easy this, I'm afraid. So There next to the light, the side of the light there, is your battery charging systems, battery management systems, and just under that is the raw water strainer for the starboard side engine. And over this side you've got a similar water strainer there for the port side engine. These then are the shafts that run back out through the boat. There's the other one. And there are the through hull fittings that bring in the coolant water from the ocean. Let's try and climb out of there now. Okay, so we've come back down into the main salon of the boat. Galley's just over here. Got the salon to port, seating area, etc. And I'm not going to strip the beds down and everything, but this is the master suite. Underneath this bed, so if you remove the mattress, there's a hatch under there. If you go down into there, you can access the bow thruster, and there's also two 12-volt heavy-duty batteries, as there was for the stern thruster, in the engineering space under this bed. Then you have a hatch in the floor, just there. I might pull that up for you. Actually, let me go and get one of those lights. Okay, here we go. I've got a light now. I'll turn this on, it helps. And if I can move you there, that white box there is one of the two vacuum flush systems. They were replaced last year, both of them. One of them went because, as I said, a young lady put some sanitary products down them and they don't respond well to them. There's a macerator in there as well as a vacuum pump that pumps the water out. Very similar to the sort of thing you see on a plane. If you ever use a toilet on a plane, pressurized vacuum just sucks all the waste into a tank. There's another one of those. I'm not going to strip it all out now, but there's another hatch under the floor here. I remove the rug. You can see there's another hatch. There's a similar system in there. There's a bucket in there, so you remove the bucket. There's a big storage bucket under there, and then that's got the other vacuum flush system for the main heads, which is just there. They then circle into a tank, which again I'm not going to strip the beds out, but under the bed, the sort of mid-side bed in the third cabin, if you lift out the panel underneath the bed, you get access underneath into where the main waste tank is, and then that can be pumped out by pulling along the station and attaching a hose to the waste on the side of the ship, and it will suck all of the waste out of there. You can pump out, and I'll show you that in a moment. Okay, so this is the main panel here. These are the two switches. The top controls the motors and the domestic systems. The port side, on the right side as you're looking at it, is all of your 12-volt systems. And on the opposite side, you have your 240-volt systems on the main batteries. On the main panel that comes in, so the mains power that comes in off the marina, or by throwing this switch across. If you've got the generator running like that, that will take the systems back up and over to the generator once it's running. At the bottom here, you have your generator control there, so that puts your main power on, battery to the generator. There's your main generator control panel, so you would turn it on. You would press the heat button for a short period because it's diesel, just to warm the glow plugs, and then by pressing start you would have the engine start for you. Okay, that is a thermometer. It tells you the temperatures in the engine rooms when they're turned on, and that shows you the external temperatures. So here is your waste management. So that's that tank that we were talking about in the third cabin is there, and these indicators show whether it's quarter full, 3/4 full, or full. We've not long discharged it, so it's only quarter full at the moment, or whether it's empty there. and it's must right on the cusp between the two, so it's between empty and a quarter full at the moment. We've got 2 indicators on. If you were out at sea and you wanted to discharge that and you're more than 12 nautical miles from the coast, it is permissible in tidal waters to discharge that out at sea. You cannot discharge it in places like the Mediterranean where there are no tides. It's actually illegal, and lots of the places around here have various marine protection places as well. There's lots of fish farms, etc. in the Atlantic here in this part of it, which are quite far out, and you'd be surprised just how far out they get. I'll show you some when next time we go to Spain. We'll pass the big tuna farms where they farm yellowfin tuna, and so they don't want you dumping waste out there, obviously, because the fish are just going to get contaminated with it. And to be honest with you, you shouldn't do it anyway. I would always encourage anybody to just pump out in a marina rather than to try and pump it out at sea where, you know, you swim, your kids swim, your grandchildren swim or whatever. The last thing you want to do. But if you were far enough out at sea and you wanted to discharge that tank, let's say it was full and you were going to be a while before you could get to a marina that has a pump out facility, then fine, in an emergency you'd have to evacuate some of the waste. You simply flip the switch across there and it will begin a pump out process automatically and drain that through a fitting in the hull on the bottom of the boat. But as I say, I would caution anybody against doing that. Just go to a marina and pump it out there. Much better. That about covers it, really. That's the domestic systems, etc. Okay, we are back in the third cabin, and one thing to show you here, let's close that door. Here is the electrical panel. The main wardrobe storage space for this cabin is here, and this then is the main access. I'll just reach up and grab that key. There we go, and there are 2 keys. Got that right? Yeah, there we go. And there is your main electrical access for the boat. So all the powers come in through the bottom of the boat there and are distributed through the various systems. You've got various controls here for winches and roofs, etc. From the different controls, including the remote control systems and receivers are down there for the winches and the anchor winches, etc. You've got your Raymarine smart systems there for your GPS and your radar. And then that is the back of that control panel that you've just seen in the galley. That about wraps up the tour of the technical systems. If there's anything anybody wants to know, just please give me a call. You've got a wiring diagram in there from Crunchy. We've got all the various books and on every piece of kit that's there, stored in a big carry case that Crunchy supply. I'll run you through that as a separate video because it's extensive. And we'll close that up. So guys, that concludes the tour of the technical areas. I'm now sweating like a pig after crawling through all those spaces, but hope it was worth it for you. As I said, if I missed anything out, you see something that I've not pointed out and said what it is, ask me the question in the comments. I'll try and answer that for you. If you want any further explanation on any of the bits and pieces, again, I'll come back and do that for you in a separate video. I'm also going to do, once we fill the tanks a little bit more with the waste tanks, I'll show you how we pump out. We'll pump out the station over by the fuel station here. Next time we put gas in, and next time we put the diesel in, we will pump the waste out so you can see how that's done. It's like a big hose pipe that they hook into the waste system, and it just drags all the rubbish out, all the effluent out. So we'll show you that next time, or maybe the time after. A couple of other things to show you as we go through the next couple of weeks. Hope this has been interesting for you. See you soon, guys.